Ladies and gentlemen, it's great to have you back in the room. Now, we're going to cover something which also for me is one of the highlights of the days, because we have inaugurated a series that will be running here on the innovation stage called Perspectives of Production, so which we also refer to as the POP Talks. The POP Talks will be centering on artificial intelligence. So throughout the week, you can expect fantastic speakers and participants who will drill deeper into the matter at hand. Now, the first one on the POP Talk series is outstanding because it covers artificial intelligence in production. We talk about technical developments, business models, which I think is super exciting, and also something that we leave aside, the regulatory questions. Now, that's what we want to cover here as well. Now, we have an expert here in the room today that is well placed to answer all the questions. So let us please welcome on stage Professor Dr. Patrick Glauner. He is the CEO of Skyrocket AG and professor at the Deggendorf Institute of Technology. It's great to have you, Dr. Glauner. Please, you have the floor. Thank you very much for the kind introduction. Ladies and gentlemen, it's a pleasure to speak in front of you here today. Now, everyone's talking about AI. That's talk of the town, many AI application examples here at the trade fair. What I'm going to do now is to talk about the latest AI trends, but rest assured, AI is not the cure-all for everything. So there are a few things you need to bear in mind in order to make money with AI. There are some legal limitations, or ramifications, I should say. Many different AI applications is something that you're going to hear here at the exhibition in the next couple of days. So what you're going to get from me here now is to set the stage, an introduction. I've been introduced already, so I can skip the first slide, and let's get started right away with my presentation. Artificial intelligence as a scientific area goes back to the mid-1950s, and we've seen over the years that AI has been integrated into smartphones, internet applications, but many of those were still related to information technology. However, what we have seen in the past years is that AI has also changed other industries, not only IT. Just recently, 2 Nobel Prizes have been awarded for AI. The chemistry Nobel Prize was awarded for protein-related problems. In physics, it was awarded for pure AI work. So what we're seeing is now that AI is transforming many other industries. Now, in chemistry and protein problems, these were problems that experts could no longer describe. So across all industries, including production, there are many smart people that can explain and model things really well, but there's only so much a human can do. And then AI, if you will, can add on that and develop relationships between data that humans no longer can. Then also we see massive geopolitical changes that are driven by AI, huge investment packages in the US stimulating AI development, but there's also massive AI advances made in China, as we have seen a couple of months ago with the language model of DeepSeek. So what comes to mind in my case is, well, I've been in AI for 15 years and I'm fascinated by it, but apparently these days everything in the media and in the press is focusing on AI. Every simple algorithm is called AI these days. So this begs the question, what is it really? Because people understand different things when they say it. For me, AI means automating human decision-making. Now, studies say that people can take decisions 30 times per day, private or professional, car driving, controlling a machine at work, controlling a production process, quality inspections, service emails, etc. Now, we want to use AI to automate that decision-making or partly automate that decision-making, making sure that people are faster, cheaper, and better in taking their decisions. Now, for the majority of people out there, AI became known with ChatGPT at the end of 2022. GPT is a great AI because you can do many things with it. You can generate excellent cooking recipes, or you could have an owner's manual created, have translations done, quality reports, many different use cases, but it affects many other jobs that are changing, namely software developers or coders. Software developers are doing outstanding work, of course, but at the end of the day, source code is just text. And if it's text, you can, to a certain degree, generate by AI. And we also see that AI has fundamentally changed the job market for IT experts. Now, you can also use AI to generate CNC code. Think about it. Maybe you have seen this here at the exhibition, or whether that's talk of the future. So you can generate CNC language from requirements, from specifications. So something fundamental is changing now. But there's another side to it. Yes, jobs will disappear, professional profiles will change with AI, but you're well advised to deal with AI early on in your company, because it's probably those who disappear that have not been using AI. They will be replaced by the AI users, because productivity gains are apparent. So jobs and job profiles are changing, no doubt about it. But the different methodologies underlying AI, and what is used a lot these days, is machine learning. Machine learning doesn't describe an algorithm and doesn't tell you how a problem needs to be solved, but you're giving examples to a computer. And then the computer uses those examples to create a relationship between data, and it creates a pattern, or it learns a pattern, and that pattern is then used to take a decision. Now, sometimes people are saying machine learning is the area that allows computers to learn without being programmed to learn. So what does that mean? Well, it means you still need to do coding and programming, but the AI methods that you're using are highly generic. So with just a few tweaks and adjustments, you can train them for different problems or issues. Now, how does that work in real terms? Let's look at visual inspection checks. Imagine you've produced a part and you want to check whether the quality of your part is okay or not. Now, one approach would be have a human operator do it, and the other one is have a computer do it. Now, for the computer approach, you would have to program a rule saying, look, this part is quite okay, it's meeting the following requirements, X, Y, Z, and a not okay part will meet other requirements. Now, to write those rules is very complex. So therefore, ideally, you want to learn your requirements from data rather than describing them. Now, one approach that's used to do that these days, predominantly, is artificial neural networks. Artificial neural networks go back to the 1950s in research. So in the past 20 years, however, major strides have been made ahead. So what is an artificial neural network? Essentially, it's an AI that's inspired, independent of the human brain, but inspired by it. So we have many neurons in the human brain, and what you see here in gray is the neurons, the individual units. Now, it's important to remember, a neural network doesn't work like the human brain. It's only inspired by it, as I said. Now, in the left, in the left column, you have the input unit. This is where the neural network gets some input material, like pixel images you see at the top. And at the very right, you have the output unit. So you're putting something in, you expect something to come out. So you see humans and pictures of cats. So that's a very well-known Google example from 15 or 20 years ago, right? Because there the question was, how can AI know whether it's a human or a cat in your picture? Well, you can use that for a Platen or a workpiece. Is it good? Is it okay? With good quality or not? Now, the neural network between the input layer, which is the left column, and the output layer, which is on the right, has fewer or more additional layers. If you connect those units, ideally, so all nodes in the first layer get connected to the nodes in the second layer, and the second to the third, etc., and so on. So there are different layers, multiple layers in between input and output side. And this means a neural network gets more powerful and it can learn relationships, single edges, groups of edges, groups of groups, etc. Now, learning means you have the linkage between the neurons. These are just numerical values, right? They are parameters of a statistical model. And you can set those parameters by learning in such a way that the neural network learns the relationship that is interesting for you. Like for a quality inspection, you're giving examples to the computer saying, look, this example is an okay product, quality okay, this one is not okay, quality is bad. And then the neural network can then learn the relationship between the pixel and the label of the output signal. Now, the great thing about that is the neural networks can not only be used for pictures, but for many other things as well. Neural networks, for instance, are also the basis for ChatGPT. The fundamental idea of ChatGPT goes back to a publication which was published about 7 to 8 years ago, where a big neural network was proposed. This big neural network works very well using text data. Now, which of you knows what GPT stands for? Everyone says GPT. So can we have a show of hands? Who knows what the acronym stands for? There's one hand, there's two hands. Okay, we could do better. Because what we see in the neural network here and how it works in detail, it's probably not something that I can go into there. But if you have a look at the right one is the transformer. T stands for transformer. This is a neural network that is learning relationships within a text. What does G stand for in GPT? G stands for generative. So a network is not only doing classifications, but it generates new content. And P in the middle means pre-trained for large volumes of text. So it's a generative pre-trained transformer. Maybe bear that in mind. This is your learning of the day. Everyone talks about JetGPT these days, but not many people know what it actually stands for. So this means a lot has changed in the market. Across the different markets, we use JetGPT at home, in private, but you can use it for your job as well. It's this type of architecture that can be used not only for text, but it's also used these days for transforming requirements into source code. Customer requirements are transformed into CNC. Some of these attempts are available as well. You can do it for video, you can do it for audio, and many other things. Now, what we have seen in the past couple of months is AI agents. Now, that's something I'm sure you've heard. Now, what is an agent? The concept, again, is not new. It has existed in AI for many decades, and now it's regurgitated again, big hype. But it's actually going back to the original language models. The language models like ChatGPT are great. So you put something in and you get a text out of it. But what are you doing with the result out of it? Now, normally, you don't need a text answer, right? You must have specific action. Like, for instance, someone needs to send an email, or you want to shift a file from A to B. So you want to do something, you need to connect it to another system. And this is what the AI agents are doing. So if you will, it's a mix of robotic process automation and large language models. Robotic process automation was a term that was quite fashionable 5 years ago, where we talked about automating workflows. Today, we talk about AI agents, workflows, and their automation, but using machine learning and language models. Different vendors offer that. For instance, UiPath, and I'm not going to advertise them. There are others out there as well. So what they're doing is they're building a workflow, assembling it, and within that workflow, you can also describe how you want to automate your process and what AI wants to do for you. It's your agent. So it's helpful, yes, but it's not a non-brainer. It's not like an AI agent can automate your processes out of its own volition and solves your solutions. Sometimes the press is selling that. It's not true. It is not true. You still have to model something up front before the agent can do it for you. Now you're wondering, how can AI be used in your own organization? Here are a few tips. First of all, AI is not the solution for all of your problems. There are two ways or areas where you can use AI in your company. Number one, you use it along your value chain. Okay, so it means within your own organization, you're automating your own internal processes. That's one way to go about it, and it's actually the one you should do first. This should be your first application scenario in your own organization when you want to use AI to leverage potentials, to be more productive. And the beauty of that is you have access to your internal data. You're not going to be overwhelmed with all the regulation side of things. You don't need to think about marketing. So essentially, it's all only about optimizing your internal processes. So that's the first step. Another step is you can integrate AI in your products and services. There are beautiful machines here at the exhibition with AI on board. So it's part of your product, or the product that you buy from elsewhere. And then you use those products to automate your own processes further. So that's the second way to go about it. No matter what step you're taking first, it's important for you to have the metrics in place to understand how well or how not so well you're doing in your process. Because there are studies out there who say that 90% of all AI projects fail. These are awful numbers, and those numbers are true. Why? Because many people or many companies are saying, let's do AI and let's put AI on board, and then at the end of the day, no one knows what it really helped. So, before you use AI, look at your processes first, whether they're good or not good, and then measure them after you've used AI, and then you see whether they have improved or not. Now, what problems could ideally be solved using AI? As a professor of AI, I'm very happy when people talk about AI, but at the same time, I'm a corporate consultant, and then there's something you bear in mind as well, need to bear in mind. Because there's many companies that tell me, we want to do AI, and I ask them, what is it? And they just tell me AI, AI, AI. Yeah, but what? And I said, well, and they say, I have a data set and use AI with it. So what can we do with data and data sets? It's not as easy as that, let me tell you. You still need to have specific problems, a problem to solve. Maybe a straightforward problem, and mind you, it's not always the panacea. If you want to improve a process manually, if you have too many interdependencies in your business process, do it manually, do it, okay? Because for some problems, AI can be a solution, especially for decision-making problems where your decision tree is very long and costly and has vagaries where your experts will say yes and or no. So this is where AI may be useful. So if you want to roll out AI in your company, you don't need to invest massively because there are many solution vendors already. You don't need to reinvent the wheel. There are great solutions out there like Copilot from Microsoft, which uses a language model based on the data that you're having in your Microsoft cloud. You can ask a question. It's very similar to ChatGPT. It runs through different Office files or presentations, Excel files. It can answer many different questions and will massively, significantly improve your, accelerate your work. Also for software development, there are many AI tools out there. So what I'm saying is, do not reinvent the wheel. Finally, a few more sentences here on regulation. As we speak, there are global attempts to regulate artificial intelligence. So policymakers always claim AI is unregulated. I'm having a problem to accept that, because if you were to use AI in products and services, you would also be subject to vertical regulations like the Machinery Directive. Or if you're using AI in cars, you will be subject to car regulation. In the EU, there are lawmakers who believe that an AI-Act is requirement, which is a horizontal AI regulation that affects all applications of artificial intelligence. This AI-Act has been adopted. Parliaments have conducted hearings. I have repeatedly testified in the German Parliament and also in the European Parliament as an expert, and I've always cautioned people or warned people against the AI Act, because everyone who wants to develop or use AI have to meet hundreds of pages of regulation, and it's no good for us in the world of international competition. But we must not play ostrich. we need to act now, especially for SMEs. You cannot read hundreds of pages of AI Act regulation. So what's happening now, and this is where you can get involved, there are special commissions and associations that are trying to develop checklists for every industry. Now, if in your industry you want to use AI, you use this checklist, which is what, 2-3 pages maximum, which covers 95% of regulatory compliance. And this is what the different industry associations are currently doing. So feel free to get involved, to be in the driver's seat there as well. And that will help us to comply with the AI Act rather than, reading through the hundreds of pages. And finally, a few more sentences on how you roll out AI in your company. I mean, those who want to roll out AI in their organization, and their managers who will be very happy about that, but there are always fears and concerns in the workforce. Now, you need to address those fears in your workforce, like loss of jobs. I said before, yes, AI is changing a job. Now, getting involved early on in shaping that change is better than ignoring it, because otherwise you're going to be replaced by those who are using AI productively, other colleagues, other organizations, other companies. So therefore, get involved early on, shape this transformation actively. Have your people on board. You need to talk to the trade unions. You have to talk to the Works Council to address people's fears. Otherwise, and there are negative examples like in the US, where there was a strike in Hollywood, by employees in Hollywood being actually afraid of the implications of AI. So it's about change management. Have people on board and dispel their fears. Sometimes AI take decisions and people don't understand why that decision is taken by AI. Those are what are also called black boxes. But there are also ways to make AI understandable, or explainable AI is the name here. This helps you a great deal to increase the acceptance in society and in your company. So you are better informed when you know why AI is taking a decision. And it's important to bear in mind, AI makes mistakes just as humans make mistakes. Why? Because some of the data sets are faulty. There are other reasons why AI makes mistakes. And often then people say, if AI makes a mistake, that's the end of the world. I don't think that's it. That's not the case. It's first human intelligence, then artificial intelligence. We need to think with human intelligence what can be automated with AI and where AI supports us. And AI, over the course of time, will get incrementally better. I think we should use the same requirements for AI as we use for humans. Humans make mistakes just as AI, and over time, all of them get better. Now, and finally, and lastly, where is Germany? Germany is very often, talking us down, or we are talking ourselves down, saying that we're not performing well. Well, together with the International Finance Forum in China, we have organized a survey and found out that Germany is on place 7 when it comes to the number of AI companies in R&D and development and talent recruitment. Germany is already in place 4 or 5. So we're performing much better than what is commonly assumed, but still more needs to be done. And now I'm looking forward to the Q&A with you. If you want to learn more about AI, please follow this QR code. You can download my lecture series there. They're in English, and you can learn a bit the methodology of AI. Thank you so much. Well, great applause for you there, Mr. Glauner. Excellent. Please take your seat. Now, first off, thank you very much. Now, I'll tell you why I'm thanking you. What I really like now was that, you bring everyone on board. You start from the basics. I mean, either you only scratch the surface. I mean, that's what many people say when you asked about GPT. That was interesting. I wasn't aware of that. Everybody uses it. No one really knows what it stands for. And so that's something. And then you really refer to where we're currently at and what happens in AI. So let me drill a little deeper. This is a manufacturing technology show. So let's talk about production technology first. I'm sure you're the expert. What can be done these days already with AI? As we started off, you said AI should automate human decisions. I quite like that approach. If you look at production these days, at the production sector, what could be done today and where are we still in the lab phase? Well, one example of AI working well is inspection checks. I mentioned that before. So AI can be used to use deep neural networks. Deep learning is the name of the game, to learn from visual errors much better than the human eye. However, it necessitates good training data. If your training data is bad, it's not going to work. But there are other approaches where AI can help us for resource efficiency, fewer metal cuts or cuttings, reduced energy use, reduced use of detergents and cleaning fluids. So people want to clean their machines, but maybe you don't need that much. And this is where AI can help you more than the human experts can. That's a fact. And now many experts will retire very soon in Central Europe. We are facing a dramatic lack or scarcity, shortage of skilled labor. It's not only about getting things done quicker and better, but being in a position to do it in the first place, if we don't have the people to do that. That's a very exciting approach. Now, what I'm hearing from many industries is that there's a great need for more labor. And then also we talked about data. You need to feed your AI system with data. Imagine you own a production company or you're a machine tool maker, and then you said, well, I want to use AI. How can I make sure that my data gets into the AI? Now, everyone can use it with ChatGPT, but how do my production data get into AI and how can I make it workable? Well, let's get started with ChatGPT. You can upload your data with ChatGPT, and you should be careful. You can use OpenAI's free version, but then look at the privacy policy, because it's much longer, every day. You don't really know what's going to happen to your data if you uploaded it to ChatGPT or OpenAI or others. So if you're using cloud-based tools, purchase a pro license, which gives you more confidentiality and guarantees. There may be some vendors that are hosted in Europe that may be even safer and securer. I think Microsoft at some point said, even if you host your data in Germany, the US still has access. The Patriot Act, the US Patriot Act, beats it all. So they have access to everything. And that leads to some degrees, potential degrees of industrial espionage. So you can use cloud providers from Europe as well. But then you can train your AI also in-house on your own servers, small models on a laptop computer. So if you train it internally, you have the full control of your own data, so that should be done ideally. And if you want to input more data, larger models, you need more computing power. Now this is where cloud solutions make a lot of sense. So if you go to Microsoft, Amazon, or Google, and there are also European cloud providers, they already have ready-made AI features. You don't need to reinvent things. There's a lot out there already, and that's important. Okay, let's again talk about best practices. You work as a consultant, as you've said before, and I understand for many companies it's still a pilot project, everyone excited, and then it didn't quite work out as well, and it's complicated. But do you still have positive use cases that you can share with us, where your company that you've worked with has been successful in AI in production? Well, I said before, there are studies saying that 90% of AI projects fail. Well, we want to see a situation where the opposite is true, where 90% of projects are a success. But the question you always need to address, does AI make sense at all in the first place? Because when companies tell me we want to do AI and ask them what exactly, and they said, well, just AI, irrelevant of a problem, then you're not solving a problem, you're creating new ones, and that leads to chaos. Especially in a conservative environment like manufacturing, where your first concept hasn't worked, people will scrap AI for all times. So solve specific problems. And maybe you start with the problems where you find the easy fixes. In science, you always want to resolve complex problems rather than the low-hanging fruit. I suggest you start with the low-hanging fruit. Now imagine you want to improve your visual inspection process. Or maybe automate customer emails for your support line and automate them from there. That could tap major potentials. Or take production, predictive maintenance. If you want to do that, so know what's happening to a product. These are excellent use cases to start with AI on. But always ask yourself the question, do you need AI? Can I do it differently? If your business process doesn't work because it has many interdependencies, AI is not going to help you either. So first human intelligence and then artificial.
So that means you would say, okay, let's have a look at where your problems are. What are some easy problems that can be tackled first? Let's look into AI. Does it make sense to use it here? What you're describing, this is the impression that I get. People say, okay, certainly an AI can solve this for us, but the intelligent pathway towards the solution, this is something that we have to think about ourselves, right? That is exactly right. Now, the topic of security, we addressed the AI Act. This is something that I've heard many times, people being afraid of it. So what happens to my data? We spoke about the pro version. I'm a missionary myself. When I speak to my friends and my family, get a pro subscription. As an SME, where the topic of IT is a difficult one these days, how can we foster trust for people to think that it makes sense to go down this path? Because waiting for the regulators might take too long. Raising awareness regarding the data. On the one hand, raising awareness, sure, but also fostering trust. Well, we should always start being courageous. In Europe, we usually want to prevent every negative outcome, and then at the end of it, nothing actually happens. Taking risks. I think in the 50s and 60s in Germany, that used to be the case. Things were tried out because otherwise the reconstruction could not have taken place. Raising awareness, first of all. Listen to your employees. Integrate them. Get them involved. Ask them what kinds of tasks they don't enjoy doing. What's repetitive work, what are mundane tasks. There are many different responses to this. And then you look at what you can actually work on, so you can free up space with your employees. But raising awareness, making sure that your employees don't just upload all of their data to ChatGPT or their competitors. Maybe you need to provide resources through a different cloud provider. Some companies, after ChatGPT was introduced, they blocked it internally in their network, and that is exactly the wrong approach, because then your employees end up using their private devices. But rather support them. Tell them that they can use these devices, that they can use these applications, but that there are certain rules, which was more positive. That's a lot better than trying to prohibit them, because otherwise people start using their own devices. That's a typically German behavior. It is one of the most well-known cliches. In your presentation, you spoke about Chinese partners, the Financial Forum, the International Finance Forum, right? If you look at that, that was your perception, but that was your impression, that the Chinese, the Americans are a lot further along in their development, and they don't have this massive hurdle in front of them. So as an expert, as a teacher in this topic, would you say that we're lagging behind, or what is your impression? Well, in Germany, we have a fairly decent AI basis. Education, new degrees, companies use AI a lot. There's a lot of potential to roll it out a bit more. And if you look at the actual number of AI companies, we're placed 7th worldwide. Regarding startups, though, the density per population, well, I think there's also still some potential. So regulatory issues are a problem, of course, but especially people thinking that there are certain things that they can't do. Also, the AI Act, they leave us a lot of freedom, and politicians should really formulate this rhetoric more easily. So the major obstacle which we have in Europe is the financing of startups. So that's what I'm seeing. So many great startups being founded in Germany or in Europe, and as soon as US, they have gained the first smaller amounts of money of funding in Germany, then they move towards the US or Asia for bigger investments. So our companies, they have billions, but they're obligated to invest their money in treasuries. Many companies would like to invest more in AI, but they're not allowed to. So if we make the regulations easier, simpler, then startups in Germany will grow. They wouldn't be founded here and then move to the United States to grow there, but rather they would stay here. So that's an interesting point, funding. Changing the regulatory environment, of course, that is one point, but actually nowadays, this is very US-centric, the AI business, also financially, because I think it takes a lot of money. So as a German company, if you decide that you want to invest in AI, then you don't have to set up your own AI system necessarily, but wouldn't you have to direct yourself at or move towards an American solution, because that is the only thing that makes sense. Okay, we see these billions of investments for large language models. Building one from scratch is of course expensive. Maybe I don't have to build my own language model, but I can use an existing one, maybe the OpenAI one, the ChatGPT model. There are many open source models which I can use for free and train them on my data. And these language models are of course just one of many examples from the AI world. I can use some smaller AI models for classification problem, for example, image recognition. I can train them on my laptop. I don't need massive infrastructure to do this. In the case of certain models, you may have to, but people saying the statement of it's too expensive to set up your own AI, that is not the case. This may apply to a certain degree to certain language models, but only up to a point, and you can't apply this to all AI procedures. That's great. Moving away from the classical topic of ChatGPT, if I speak to companies, they always mention ChatGPT, so they don't have any idea of what else it might be. So we have a very interesting question from the audience. How can companies protect themselves from becoming dependent on AI applications? If I pick up your example, I can use an existing model such as ChatGPT, but then I'd be dependent on this tool. And I think the concern is, when do you stop thinking yourself? I think this is a major concern. Well, we all depend on IT. Many companies depend on Microsoft Office. They depend on Microsoft Windows. Those are certain dependencies that exist. It is hard to solve them. AI creates new dependencies. But what's great about this situation is that if you look at language models, such as ChatGPT, I can replace them easily. They're easily replaceable because there are many different competitors. So basically, I'm replacing API calls. So it would be easy to just switch the provider. So in those areas where I can't have a dependency, I may have to develop my own tool. But in certain spots, of course, there are dependencies in certain areas. So it might be more meaningful to actually accept those than developing your own tools. I mean, this is something that you need to think about. Excellent. I would like to get back to the AI Act. I found a few quotes without me having really verified them. But when you said this, and if you said this, you're very experienced, and what I thought was great is that you told us that this is not something that's been on the market for 3 years, but we've been speaking about AI for a very long time. Even in the 70s and the 80s, the term was already used, and there was no AI disaster. So do we need regulation, or should we be more open to it? What do you think? I've always been a huge opponent of this AI Act, which does not mean that I'm against regulatory measures, which critics often tell me that I'm against regulation. This is not the case. I'm against over-regulation. And it's not clear what gap this AI Act is trying to bridge, because the European Commission says the AIs are not regulated, we need to bridge this gap. But if I integrate an AI in particular applications, then of course I always need to be compliant with vertical regulation, so it's unclear what the AI Act is actually address. And of course, if there are gaps, they need to be bridged, sure, but I'd rather try to bridge them vertically and not horizontally. Excellent. Speaking about employees, change management with your staff. I mean, this is a question that I'm interested in personally. And I have a range of employees, and you have those who've already looked into it, who are open to using AI, who want it, and then you have those, the full of fears and concerns, which is also fueled by the media. So how do we get them on board? What's your recommendation? Listen to your employees. What issues do they have? What tasks do they not enjoy doing? Where are they overwhelmed by their jobs? And sometimes you speak about these repetitive tasks. We can just automate them. I have an example for you from a different sector. I met a lady who works at an insurance company, a medical insurance company, and she said, okay, she's actually a regular clerk, and these simple cases were now automated by the use of AI. So now she only works on these difficult cases, but now she's actually quite close to burning out, because these easy cases actually served to making her life easier, because if all day she's working on these complicated cases, then this is, of course, overwhelming, and there's a reduction in productivity. So if you think of change management, for example, this is an open question, because employees sometimes need easy cases in order to reduce the workload. But listen to your employees, integrate them, speak to the Works Council early on, because they can prevent many things. I often join these stakeholder meetings where you sit together with the CEOs or the executive employees, and I ask them, is there anybody represented from the Works Council? They tell us, no, they will learn about us using AI towards the very end, and I tell them, integrate them, get them involved early on, because Works Councils, they're not opposed to everything. You can also have them receive further training courses. Hans Böckler Foundation, for example, they offer some very valuable training courses on AI. So, offering training opportunities to people early on, listen to their issues, and accompany them when it comes to the introduction of AI. Taking up the topic of employees, if nowadays we look at the industry and you speak to employees, if we look at the demographics first, we have, especially in the technological sector, people are getting older because there's not a lot of young talent. You're fairly lucky because you have a very close connection to younger people. So in production, for example, if I'm introducing the iPad in order to document the production process, and everybody on their iPad, they have the pertinent information. Now introduce AI, and this speed is even higher. How do you think about this? So you have a group of employees, most of our productive employees. Well, these demographic facts make change management even harder. Well, this demographic change is taking place increasingly quickly. So lifelong learning is, of course, a key. So companies need to invest in their employees. But again, AIs can help you in these training sessions by adapting these training contents. So not everybody has to actually go to the same class. Everybody has different speeds when it comes to learning. So you have proprietary platforms which can be used cheaply. You upload your content, and it is then tailor-made to the particular individual. This is my question now. Looking at the group you're working with, your students, how do they absorb the topic? I mean, you stand in front of them every day. So if I look at the overall complex, if I study production technology, then AI is not necessarily the main topic, but when it comes to teaching, what are the current developments? Well, the majority of my students, they do an undergraduate degree or a master's in artificial intelligence. I'm an IT professor, so they're of course enthused when it comes to AI. And if they weren't, then they wouldn't be studying it. Anyway, years ago, we need to get AI into the other degrees, chemistry, electronics, for example. So we have initiated my school a master's for the connection of AI and mechatronics. A master's degree, those studying it, they usually have an undergraduate degree in machine building, electronics, and then in the master's program, they learn how to connect all of those topics. And I think this is a huge chance. It's a huge opportunity. It's an English language master's. So we have about 30 spots per year, and we get thousands of applications from all over the world. So there's a lot of interest. Great. Speaking about politics, you're a political consultant. So if we look at the situation in Germany, let's forget about the AI Act, for example. In German politics, how do they look at the issue? With a massive transformation process, infrastructure, our trains, the automotive industry, all of this is dominating our society. So how is AI being perceived by German politicians? So what's good is that now we have a Minister for Digital Affairs, which is a huge opportunity. AI, though, is a topic that does not just affect the digital minister, but it affects everyone, every ministry. And I think they look at it as a chance, as an opportunity, but it's a small number of politicians who really understand what's behind it. It's a buzzword, of course, AI. So many of them get confused between algorithms and AI, but that's what we're there for, as experts. We try to support them. I took part in these hearings in Parliament. I had a meeting with Olaf Scholz, the former Chancellor, Friedrich Merz, the current Chancellor as well. So apart from AI, they're of course treating hundreds of other topics. You have to show them where the additional value lies, so that you create a positive attitude, because depending on people's political inclinations, they have a negative attitude towards AI. We need to really show them where can AI help us when it comes to a skilled workers shortage, scaling the health care system. And if you manage to do so, you can get politicians on board. In your speech, you managed the professional associations. We had a colleague from VDMA who was active in additive manufacturing. And so I asked her the question, so how about the work in associations in AI? So what's your perception? You also invited companies to join you. Should there be more going on? Well, many of the associations or organizations, they have AI work groups. You can get involved there. And I think in the industry, it's helpful to everybody if from there's some work, if checklists are created, so you can work through AI requirements. Use cases could be shared. There were some interesting AI use cases which I saw at the trade fair here today. And in the pop talks, you might hear more. Let's get back to production. You mentioned predictive maintenance. This is something that we addressed. Learning, education, that was quite interesting. So what is going to affect production the most, or manufacturing? I think sustainability still, using resources more efficiently, since there are more regulatory requirements also in terms of sustainability, but also in international competition. We have very high energy costs, which we need to move away from, and I believe that AI can play a major role in this, apart from many other use cases. So you mentioned that at this trade fair you saw many different things. So what was a highlight which you thought was interesting? There are many of them. I don't want to highlight any particular booth, but we have a great question here. There's the theory that AI is currently replacing mediocrity, and that is a question, that's a matter of time before it actually replaces expert knowledge. This is certainly a way to look at it. AI is not replacing any experts yet. It's more easy, mediocre jobs, menial tasks, which is also a massive transformation. So what is going to happen to experts? I believe that also people carrying out these menial tasks, they can also grow, they can keep developing, and through the use of AI, they can learn, they can improve. And at the end of it, we can look at it as a chance. So if the AI improves, so the experts, they themselves might improve. Even I, as a professor, I publish many things, and I believe that my writing style, thanks to tools such as ChatGPT, has improved, because I, of course, also use it massively in order to write my publications or to write code. And of course, I can't just copy and paste everything that it presents me. I'm feeding it with a lot of data in order to get decent results, but from the result, I keep learning and I keep developing cognitively. So we, as people, as human beings, we can grow through the use of AI. Jobs are going to be lost. Or maybe jobs won't be lost, but they're going to change dramatically. If we just stick to manufacturing, what do you believe are jobs in the future that are going to really change? They're going to be affected by this. I think in manufacturing you see fewer and fewer people who actually work, who want to work on the shop floor. It's too loud, it's too hot. So this could be further automated so that you can employ fewer employees. It is not about reducing the number of employees necessarily, but rather actually somebody carrying out the work. But even the job of a programmer is changing, so that from textual requirements I can then generate a CNC, and the person who used to write the CNC won't be replaced, but they will have to look at it, or they can work on more things at the same time. But again, we have a skilled labor shortage here. And the use of AI in this context is, of course, something very positive. Interesting. Another interesting question, which you can see on the screen. You've seen AI for the past 15 years. And the question is, was there a breakthrough in the past 3 years? This is probably the way we perceive it, but you as an expert could give us some context. CM programmation, automatic quotation. When is this going to be rolled out at a large scale? Yes, I've been in AI for the past 15 years, full-time. So this disruption is something that I haven't seen in those 15 years, but what we're seeing is that the methods are improving, processes are getting better, we get cheaper calculations, we have more data, and something such as ChatGPT is, of course, perceived as a disruption or as a revolution by many, but there were many models before that. So methodically speaking, maybe this was not a revolution, but the number of users, of course, this was quite new. So 1 billion people use these tools on a regular basis, and a couple of years ago it was just a couple of million. Methodically, though, there wasn't a breakthrough. It might still come. But it's an iterative process. So now you're teaching, you always look towards the future. You need to get prepared, whether you want to or not. So in the future, what's going to be the one topic, or what might be a breakthrough? Well, we always have this hypothetical topic of a superintelligence, many different terms, artificial general intelligence, superintelligence. This is something, and I can explain to you what they are. We can see individual AI applications that are doing much better than particular individuals for one particular use case. Inspection, controls, planning, but the AI can only do as much and nothing else. And a superintelligence, or an artificial general intelligence, would be an AI that is better at a whole range of problems than people. And if that actually happened, then this would be the one last big invention which a human being made, because the system could, of course, improve on its own. So how realistic is this? There are whole books about this. Mr. Kurzweil, for instance, said the singularity is near. And this is a point in time in the future when this actually happens. Some people say the singularity is quite close. Other people say it's never going to happen. I myself have massive doubts whether it might come by the end of the century, because we are making progress, but at some point we would need this exponential behavior. And if that were already the case, then the singularity might have arrived a long time ago. But it might be a big chance, it might be an opportunity, so that we as humans can focus on other things. But this is not something that's around the corner. So you can respond to this question very quickly. You're right in the middle of it, and from today's point of view, you're of course an expert for the topic. Are you ever afraid of what AI means for the future? Well, I might say, as a university teacher, I don't care. My job is safe, it's secure, but I want to do something meaningful in the future. And what I want to do, we're of course teaching excellent students who, out there in the industry, they apply these AI applications, improving our competitiveness, making us more sustainable. I mean, my job is also changing rapidly thanks to AI. I use AI to receive support when it comes to publications, for the things that I teach, for my contents, but I've improved. And my teaching style has improved, because I don't just adopt what the AI tells me, but sometimes I receive suggestions or ideas that I wouldn't have come up with on my own. Nowadays I use AI to get inspired for new exam questions. I don't just use them directly, but sometimes these tools from my teaching contents, they actually help me generate new questions. So this is quite inspiring. So even I have improved as a professor. And this is something that I feel is quite positive. That's a very interesting experience, because that is also what I've seen. People ask me, okay, you've created an answer very quickly. Did you get it from ChatGPT? But if you don't actually use your own brain, if you don't think about them, you can't actually use these contents. And this is something that I warn people of. Don't forget to verify. Don't forget to question yourselves. But generally speaking, this is something quite positive. So yes, if you use AI, ChatGPT, then there's a negative connotation to it. To me, it's positive, because this means that this individual did something to become even more productive. As a person, as a human being, you're of course responsible for the result. You're responsible for what you publish. So human intelligence is of course important, but use it for inspiration. Also at universities, we have these discussions where many universities try to restrict or prohibit the use of AI. I myself tell my students who sit their exam with me, I tell them, you're not just allowed to use AI, I expect you to use it. Because then in these 6 months of this dissertation, you can achieve more results, better results, if you use it properly and if you have the basic knowledge, because without this basic knowledge, you can't actually verify the results. Let's have a look at the last two questions. Do you see the danger that AI might be used as a means of exerting political pressure? More should be done in AI, because otherwise you become dependent or you could be blackmailed. The question is whether this refers to particular countries or the technology itself. Well, there's the concern that the United States President Donald Trump might decide that we can't use the cloud infrastructure and then we'd be cut off. I'm not seeing this danger really, because big tech, they also want to sell their product. They depend on the revenues. I think the issue is that the high-end features which are there from big tech, being able to use it worldwide, but not in the European Union due to a huge regulatory framework. And that is the issue, that due to our own regulations, we can't use everything that's available, theoretically, in the United States. Okay, so let's pick up the last question. To what extent can artificial intelligence replace executive jobs through automated decision-making? I think this is already the case up to a certain degree. The fact that an AI can make certain predictions or projections towards the future aggregating lots of data in a very small amount of time, which a regular manager can't do. But it takes more than that. Sometimes it might just be intuition, but also social competence in order to be able to speak to your employees, to walk along the shop floor, see how people are doing, how they feel. This is something that the AI can't do, or speaking to your customers, or the trade fair. They can't visit trade fairs. We saw the Siemens robot, which can actually walk through this hall, but can they actually pick up emotions? Can they pick up on emotional cues? They can't do it yet. But in the future, who knows? And I hope you're all successful on your own AI journey in the near future. Excellent. In fact, that's really interesting, because I think managers in the future, they will spend more time on management itself, managing people, because everything around it that requires a lot of thinking and processing a lot of data is something that they will not have on their to-do list, which would be great. So thank you very much, Mr. Glauner. This was amazing. I thought it was great to have you. Thank you very much to the audience. We received some excellent questions. So we went through the entire journey. I don't know what your impression was, but I would like to leave it to you. Any final words before we end this session? Maybe just 5 recommendations so people start doing things. People should become active. Look for concrete problems that you would like to solve. Sometimes it makes sense to use AI, sometimes it doesn't. AI usually makes sense where you can make decisions more quickly and cheaper. You do need the corresponding data, you need to work together with experts. A reason why 90% of the projects don't go anywhere is because everybody's an AI expert on LinkedIn, so we need to sift through all of those experts. I'm surprised by how many self-proclaimed AI experts there are. We have some excellent students of AI. I work in Bavaria, but also here in Lower Saxony. There are some excellent offers, excellent degrees. So working together with the universities, you can receive some excellent staff. Interns, get the experts. Thank you so much, Mr. Glauner. Thank you so much for your work with the students, because that is the future that we're facing. So let's have a big round of applause for Mr. Glauner. This was a great presentation. Thank you very much.